Yes, this is
Um,
Mark Seaside here with Jason from Faithful, Honest, and True channel, and we're discussing epigenetics and what is epigenetics and basically the whole philosophy behind the concept of epigenetics. So this will be an interesting discussion. Did you find the
uh,
document we're discussing?
yep, yep. This is the one. Look, I'll just read the first part of this, and then we can discuss it. We don't have to keep reading this entire document. Beneficial mutations are required for evolution to occur, and the cause of all evolution from amino acids, like joining together to in different configurations, to all life we see today, fail. This article, and by the way, these articles are secular, peer-reviewed, scientific articles, citations, not creationist articles that you can see there. Talks about much of DNA in higher genomes in polyfunctional and multi-overlapping codes found in DNA. That means the reality is zero neutral mutations really exist that are not somewhat deleterious to some extent. Plus, the fact that recently epigenetics has removed what were considered all of the believed famous beneficial mutations, discovering they are not mutations whatsoever. Evolution is in huge trouble with compounding harmful mutations and the rarity of anything beneficial. Evolution is going the wrong way, down. That's right. The popular. Hang on, I'll just go on here and just gotta get comfortable. The popular thought: beneficial mutations in humans have been discovered recently to be nothing more than epigenetic changes, not mutation based. No evolution of a gene occurs with epigenetics, only the expression of that gene. So that's just the way the gene expresses itself. It's preloaded. The information was already there. It's not a mutation that got passed on over generations and changed them. It's because these things are happening way too quickly for that. Basically, I'm just explaining there. Beneficial mutations are now debunked, and evolution is finished. The reason is a problem. The reason it's a problem for evolution is because epigenetics has removed beneficial mutation theory out of and those are out of the model, and those are required for the theory to work. Without them, evolution doesn't happen. Well, guess what? With all the popular known beneficial mutations in humans turning out to be not a mutation at all, but rather epigenetic regulation, everything from lactose resistance, bone density, cholesterol protection called APOA-1, Milano, the Sherpas, the Sherpa people, high altitude mutation, the deep diving people mutation, etc. This means linear evolution is a lie and things only adapt, not biologically mutate, which is required for evolution. Beneficial mutation, fail, HIV-1, immunity protein. Most of the human production is based on the alternative splicing. So the variation of this receptor is not a mutation. It's basically, what's happening is it's just an epigenetic change or the way the DNA methylates, and it's being attacked, and it just throws something away, so that this HIV protein can't latch on anymore. Although, and I'll just keep reading, although many scientific articles still say so, they are old and outdated now. Read more about this epigenetic regulation from Journal of Molecular Signaling. There's a link there. Lactose mutation. They claim this is a mutation in a single SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. A point mutation results in lactose persistence. Wrong. It's epigenetic, like all the rest. Theirs is a pseudoscientific claim. Modern science has discovered that lactose tolerance is regulated by epigenetic mechanisms such as methylation levels of MC, M6, and LCT genes, increased bone density, and high altitude Sherpas, and so on and so on, and the deep diving Bardu people, Al Milano, not beneficial. Basically,
All
it
right.
goes on.
Can you pause right there, sir?
And yeah, and they're basically, I was going to stop there because now we can just talk about stuff that I already know about it. Yep, go on.
All right. So
If you might want to say something, please.
It seems to me that these epigenetic changes here are, like you said, not mutation, but instead preloaded variations or options, basically, for the living forms that are created initially, and within them is basically options for them to endure the environment that surrounds them, and that they're not actually mutations, where because the well, that didn't show up well. Let's see here. The forefront. The yeah, I'll just have to read it off the side. Can you still hear me? All right. So
yes,
the
I can still
National
hear you.
Human
Sorry, I didn't realize my mic was off. Yes, I can hear you.
It's all right. All right. So the National Human Genome Research Institute defines mutations as errors in copying genetic material to the offspring. Somatic mutations occur within the body, and there are germline mutations which occur within the gamete or the sperm or the egg of the sex cells. So we have the only mutations that are passed on through mutation. Okay, so the only mutations that are passed on through reproduction are the ones that occur within the sex cells, the gametes. So the sperm and the egg, and this is a barrier for evolution in itself, because any mutation that they think is beneficial that has to be passed on, well, this is something that had to have occurred in the gametes, not just within the body of the current creature, but actually within the sex cells of that creature for it to be passed on to the next generation. So with epigenetics, you basically have the concept of these switches, as I understand, is a good way to describe them. There's these switches that can be turned on and off to result in different adaptations, which are preloaded part of the genome, which is the genetic data of the animal forms, of the living forms. So it's not mutation, because mutation is an
I've just got
error
to
in
just quickly
copying.
explain something there.
Yeah, just a
Just
second.
explain something.
Just after
The
this, just after
mutation,
this.
the
The
switch, the way it's
mutations are an error in copying genetic code, and this is how they're
yeah.
defined by the National Human Genome Research Institute. So, on to you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add something there. I can't remember what I was going to say about the it's the way they. I was just going to add something to what you said there about the way it switches on and off. It's an epigenetic switch in the sense that it's like if you start eating healthy food or unhealthy food, or you go into a healthy clean air environment or a city environment where there's a lot of unclean air, wherever you go, like your DNA methylation, the way your DNA methylates will change. And while that's changing your DNA methylation, that basically the best way to describe it is like it'll switch on good genes and switch off bad genes. Like if you wake up in the morning and instead of having a usual breakfast, you have a heaped teaspoon of turmeric and a quarter teaspoon of ginger powder, and have that as your breakfast until lunchtime, well, and just drink water, well, that'll start switching off bad genes and start switching off good genes and help you to live longer, sort of thing. It's like it's stuff that's there, that's preloaded, that's already there. This is science. They've found 5 million that I know of, and this was a long time ago. They've probably found more since then. 5 million different epigenetic switches or switch that are in the body that are like basically they're preloaded. And a lot of these things where they think that like we've just shown with all those other icons of evolution mutations where they show that they're beneficial mutations, they're not beneficial mutations at all. They're just epigenetic change. And when you take people like the Bardu diving people and the high altitude Sherpas away from those conditions, within 1 or 2 generations, they lose that ability. So, you know, and if you're losing that ability so quickly, it's not a mutation, and you can gain these abilities. Like if you go up into a high altitude and you start there for years on end, your lungs actually get bigger and get better at absorbing oxygen and stuff like that. And that's no mutation. I mean, how can that be a mutation? I mean, mutations take generations and or not necessarily, I mean, but then you got your mutations where you've got your what do they call it, the I can't think of it right now. It's the sickle cell mutation, which helps with malaria. If you get half the sickle cell gene, then you're fine, but if you get the full one, and basically with this sickle cell, is what it does is the way it becomes immune to the malaria is it kicks out a part of a protein. It just throws it away. It literally just goes hoiks out a ribosome or whatever that organism or germ or whatever or chemical is using to latch on to get inside of it to kill it. So it's when you get the full sickle cell, it's really bad because they go into a really bad shape. They go into this sickle shape, and you've got these little supposed to be these little soft globular blood cells, red little blood like that go through these tiny little tubes, and they squeeze through. When they become full sickle shape, they bunch up on the blood cells and becomes very painful, and people die. You know, they don't live very long with those sort of things. And also people who are immune, just quickly, I've just got to say, people who are immune to AIDS also have a higher risk of certain types of cancers, so their life is shortened in other ways. So all of these immunities and all of these mutations that they say are mutations, they're just throwing away stuff, and it's leaving them less less complex, not more complex. We're going downhill, not uphill. Sorry, mate. Sorry, that was a long rant. So,
hey, that's good, man. That's what we're here for. Hey, I mean, mutation, there's 3 different sources of mutation as far as I know. There's radiation, there's chemical and elemental influence that causes mutation, and there is reproduction. So those are the 3 sources of mutation. Basically, epigenetics can even happen, from my understanding, during the lifespan of the life form itself. So epigenetics isn't technically mutation at all, even though it is a change in the DNA sequence of an organism.
it is not
it's the fact that sequence already existed and it was preloaded. Go ahead.
It's not a mutation at all. You're right.
Yeah, that's the whole concept of epigenetics, and that's what we're trying to portray here, so that people, we're trying to give a good understanding of this science and how much we've actually accomplished in the science as mankind. You know what I mean? So we understand that there are different options basically for each living form, and that these can change during your life. There's a study that I heard of about these mice, and I heard about this on what was it? Public Broadcasting radio network, and they were talking about these rats which had basically one set of rats had been nurtured by its parents where another set had not, and they found that the set after nurtured its young as well and the others didn't. So they're trying to say that there's an epigenetic switch that it leads to actual nurturing of the young of these mice. So I don't know what you think about that.
Well, they did another study where rats love the smell of fruit, and every time the rats would smell, they put the smell of fruit in there. They'd shock the rats. They put a little shock into an electric plate because where they walk around this, it's all a metal plate, so they'd get a little bit of an electric shock, and not like to harm them or physically harm them, but just to give them a little fright. And after a while, just the smell of fruit made them cringe without the electric shock, right? So then they stopped giving them the electric shock, and they stopped giving them the smell of fruit, and then they had babies. And then they got their babies and they separated them. And when the babies got old enough, they gave the babies the smell of fruit, and the babies were scared of the smell of fruit. And even though they'd had no, you know what I mean? Like, if that mutations don't work that fast, remember, they take generations, and they take, you know what I mean? But later on in those babies' lives, later on in those babies' lives, when they grew up, they lost that fear. That went away. But the fact that it carried on that quickly just shows you that this epigenetics is preloaded, front-loaded, genetics that's been there since the beginning of creation, as far as we're concerned. And all these mutations are not mutations at all. Like, all of these beneficial mutations that they point to as being beneficial, they have all deleterious effects. Like, they might have a beneficial thing for, say, like, it might help you not to get a particular type of AIDS, but then you're more susceptible to other types of cancers and other diseases. And not just that, it's not like your cells became more complex so they could fight off this thing. They became less complex. They threw away a protein or some part of this, like a ribosome or some part of the cell. They just chucked it away, and that, like, the part that the virus or the chemical uses to efficiently latch on and infect the cell. So if the cell throws away that part that the virus uses to latch on to infect the cell, then it can't infect the cell, or it can't affect the cell as efficiently, so it's less efficient, or it can't infect the cell at all. But it's not that the cell became more complex, and this is a common misconception that's been put out there by internet atheists and evolutionists about mutation. It's just a bunch of lies. What do you got to say to that?
Well, yeah, that's them grasping at straws, man. They've got very little evidence for their belief in common ancestry, so they gotta reach to those extreme facts. But it's like, and misrepresent them. That's the bad thing. That's not good science. So, but that's my opinion of that. So now we know epigenetics. I'll go find the actual definition online. But from my understanding, we have this idea that all living forms are preloaded with different options or adaptions that basically are switches that can be turned on and off. And it goes beyond that, because there's like bigger switches and smaller switches, and like there's switches for your legs, in such a way where if certain points of the genome were changed, you would be born with no legs. So it's more like the idea of accessible genomic system data that is chosen between, by basically some sort of intelligent DNA. And there is some argument that the DNA itself has consciousness. All right. So they've discovered a biosemiotic system within the genome, and the genomic data is rendered from this. So it's the equivalent of discovering that there is a computer operating system, within the human DNA. And there's different call signs and switches to be turned on and off for different programs. And they've discovered that this semiotic system, but it's a biosemiotic system. So they say that a computer system is a semiotic system. If you get into computer programming, you'll know there's calls and signs and switches. So the semiotic system is found within the human genome. Um, this genomic data is only disordered and corrupted by mutation. So the question is,
Well,
how do they assume that mutation initially created this genomic data?
yeah,
If mutation
code.
leaves the
and
genomic data
I've got
corrupt and unstable.
I've got
Because all these
I've got one here.
epigenetic switches are all these epigenetic
I,
switches, Jason. You
yeah,
know, they're supposedly preloaded. So if mutations destroying them, like you said, it's all a downhill. It's a
yeah.
downhill process. It's
I've got I've got
disorder.
one here.
So
I've got one here. A beneficial hemoglobin variance, neutral dependent phenomenon, controlled ecological. Oh, sorry, pheromone controlled uh, ecological adaptations linked to the transgressional epigenetic inheritance of morphological and behavioral phenotypes via a fixation of RNA mediated amino acid substitutions. 1800 have been reported in this human in human populations, and there's the case study, and I've got the basically got the citation here for that one. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there.
are we gonna post the link for that document in the chat so the visitors can read it?
Yeah, well, that anybody that can want, there's
All
nobody
right.
in my chat, but we'll see.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
suppose it might be. Yeah, well, they can have a look at that. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so there you go. You got something up there. So
since we're considering, epigenetics, we might as well give the definition that Google gives online. So you got, in biology, epigenetics is a study of heritable traits or a stable change of the cell function that happen without changes to the DNA sequence. The Greek prefix epi is in epigenetics implies the features that are on top of or in addition to the traditional genetic mechanism of inheritance. It's interesting. So, like you said, they're trying to tie it in with mutation when
yeah,
it's already always
yeah,
existed.
they've been doing that for a long time. They're saying epigenetics and mutations work hand in hand, but really mutations and mutations only kill, and or like I said with the so-called beneficial mutations. I've got docs on beneficial mutations, and I can show you every single one has a really bad downside to it. Like I said, with just the AIDS immunity one, you got to cancer. With the sickle cell, you get half the sickle cell, you're fine. It makes you immune to malaria. But the full sickle cell, because the malaria can't, infect the cell because the cell's deformed. But you get the full sickle cell and you're screwed. Even with the other sickle cell, the half sickle cell, you're still in deep trouble. You've got so many health problems, other health
And like I
problems
wanted
that
to
can come
say
in.
about that sickle
Nothing,
cell
none of that
disorder
is actually just throwing away genetic material, which is causing more problems down the line. We're getting less complex and not more complex, and that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, leave it to the evolutionists to try and claim that an anemia, a blood disorder, is evidence for evolution. I mean, they're grasping at straws so hard that they have to use genetic disorders to try and claim their evidence for their belief systems. So it's sad.
Milano known to be beneficial because they remove cholesterol from artery walls, but the variation of this gene is based on alternative splicing. It means the gene itself doesn't get changed, but the transcript is altered due to the nutrient adaptive reasons. You see what I mean? When you eat different things and stuff like that, nutrient adaptive reasons. By a very clever RNA mediated mechanism. Even in this article, a struggle against statistics, it states Catherine's experiment, I can't read that person's name, experiment dependent on the huge N HLBI exome database, because beneficial mutations are both hard to find and hard to prove. Also, getting enough people to search for disease-preventing genes is such a challenge. That Beseca says, that I can't pronounce the guy's name. And then it's got the NC BI or HI, NIM, NIH, gov/PMC. So I mean, it's like a proper citation there. There's not. So a lot of people claim, a lot of these atheists claim, you just use creationist propaganda and all this sort of stuff. Nah, there you go. There's your citations from your secular stuff. It's not. There's none of this creationist citations or stuff here. We're just reading from what they're saying. Most of it is a lot of this is just what they're saying. So it's just interesting when you find people that come along and say, oh, well, that's this and that, and that's why they started saying about how they're just a conglomeration, like beneficial mutations work hand in hand with epigenetic regulation. Well, first of all, you would have had to have had the mutation create the epigenetic regulation. So how can they work hand in hand? Because there would have had to have been the mutation first, right? And the mutation would have had to have created everything, right? And that's what they say. So how can the two work hand in hand when you needed mutations to create because it's already in the genome, this stuff, right? This epigenetic switches. So you needed mutations to create these epigenetic switches. And so how can they work hand in hand? They're off their heads anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Bubblegum.
And I mean, if anyone in the chat has any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to join on the mic to say anything, add anything to the epigenetics or the mutation concept. If not, I say we wrap it up.
Okay. If you, I suppose keep it short.
Short and sweet. We pretty much covered epigenetics, the concept of switches, the idea of preloaded options for human or for living forms to be able to choose and adapt to their environment, where these aren't actually caused by mutations, these errors in copying DNA information through reproduction, chemical influence, elemental influence, and radiation. But yeah,
I'm just going to quickly wait a minute. Don't end it yet. I'm just going to quickly put up this. I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm just going to put up the link so people.
Add the link before we close, definitely.
Yeah, can get it, and then at least they'll know it's there too. Hang on, just let me go back out of that. I don't want to get the link from there. I want to get the link from here, and here we go. And make sure I get the right one. Put a space and bang. There we go.
I mean, I said it once and I'll say it again. A mutation is defined by the National Human Genome Research Institute as a change in the DNA sequence of an organism. So if we want to say epigenetics are a change, maybe, a switch has been turned, but the change already existed. You know what it's been changed to? This new sequence already existed within the genome of the animal. So
no. If you look, if you go into say the Encyclopedia Britannica and you go through every 10 pages and remove one letter, right? It's not going to change the meaning. Even if you go every 20 words and remove one letter, it's still not going to change the meaning, right? But it's what happens is what's happening with us. Another thing that's happening with the human genome, and I can put these citations up. It's 100. Every person born has got 100 near neutral. No mutation is completely neutral, but near neutral mutations, which sort of evolution can't see, or natural selection can't see, because they're near neutral, right? So they don't really have an effect, so they can't really pick them up or dispose of them. So basically what you've got is these little
Every
deletions.
generation of
And
humans
I
is
have a
100.
citation for this, by the way, and
Yeah, I
there's
believe it. I
100,
believe it.
and that compounds with, and then your son has it, then it gets worse and worse with every, there's more and more build up of this loss, and it's literally called loss in the citation. They call it loss of mutation, and
It's
loss of
amazing that they
genetic
believe that
material.
this loss, that this mutation, this
No,
compounding
no,
of
this
genetic
guy is going against,
mutation
like,
results in new
yeah,
animal forms. You know, these
yeah,
evolutionists, they
this,
believe that this compounding of mistakes will result in new functional anatomy. That's ridiculous.
yeah, this guy's going like, he's not really going against the establishment, because he is the establishment. He's the evolutionary establishment. He's a hardcore evolutionist. He said that there's no way to fix this. He said that all of their rescue devices they use to fix this, he said it just doesn't work. He says that in the citation. And this guy's even gone so far as to say that basically this is so profound that if this, like, if this wasn't being replaced or changed, or you know, sort of replaced, then we should have been wiped out hundreds of times over, and dead hundreds of times over, according to the hundreds of thousands of years and millions of years of evolution. So he's got all these other weird citations about aliens coming down and, you know, boosting our genome up again and all this sort of stuff. I mean, because that's all he
Sure.
can do. He basically admits in this citation that we should be dead one. He literally says it in the citation. We should all be dead 100 times over. The human race he's talking about, right? And this is an evolutionist. This is a peer review. This has been up for, like, you know, 20 years plus, 30 years or something. This citation, it's been peer reviewed to the hilt, and you can, so he's basically just killing it right there. And I've got to find that one. But just let me have a quick look and see if they haven't 100 mutations.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Is that there's of humans. So, and that's what they mapped it at. It's amazing that they believe that there has been millions of generations, you know, of our ancestors to result in us, when mutation is so detrimental.
I think I found it. I'll post this as well as soon as I just open it and have a quick look at it and see if it is the one or not. I hope
Sure.
it is.
Let me read this too before we go on.
Contains a genome of very slightly deleterious 100 times. Oh yeah. Why have we not died 100 times over? Here it is. And this is a dead set. This has been peer reviewed to the hilt. Here, I'll post this in the chat. We're going to post this before we go. I like this citation.
Slam it in there.
I won't even put a name. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go get the name of this citation, and then I'm going to post. The name, and when people see the name, they're going to think, that's just got to be creationist propaganda. You know what I mean? I'll click on this, and then they'll find. Hang on a second. This is not. This is for real.
Straight up
this
science.
Is real McCoy.
Listen, I'm going to read this out, and then I'm going to close it if you have no objection.
Yeah, I've just got to quickly post this link.
All right.
There it is.
Okay, so it's my opinion, that evolution theory proponents suggest that all living forms are a product of mutation, while creationists understand that mutation is a destructive biological force. And the only thing new that mutation creates is genetic disorders and cancer. New genetic disorders and cancer, not new life forms. While laboratory experiments have demonstrated that amino acids can be synthesized under certain conditions, it is still an open question to how these molecules, these building blocks, these amino acids assemble themselves into the first living systems. All life forms are moving towards extinction. Deleterious mutation leads to this, what we discussed here. It's not the creation of new animal forms, as the evolution theorists would have us believe, but instead more extinct forms of life, new forms of cancer, new genetic disorders that lead to extinction, not speciation, as the evolutionists and the nested hierarchy teachers would have us believe. So, thanks for watching, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Have a great night. Jason, you too. Stay strong and God bless.
God bless everyone. See ya.